Hello, and welcome to the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, and I want you to join me on an adventure unlike any other. Not an adventure to a faraway land, not an adventure to find some buried treasure hidden deep under the ground, but a voyage into the hidden, forbidden, and little-known secrets of brute strength, raw power, unstoppable resilience, and boundless physical and mental confidence wrought from tapping into your God-given birthright of movement and its unparalleled ability to help you chisel your body, mold your mind, and forge your spirit, so that you can become the higher version of yourself that you know is hidden deep inside you, eagerly waiting for you to set it free. Along the way, we'll also take some detours into some of my other favorite subjects, such as foreign language learning, travel, business, the Bible, and all around relentless self-development. So tune in, kick back, chill out, and enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. As you're going to find out very shortly, my guest today, Jamie Lewis, didn't really like that introduction. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'll let you listen in and enjoy. But we do have a very, very good show for you today. The Royal I have a very good show for you. And I'm welcoming back onto the podcast none other than Jamie Lewis of Plague of Strength fame. Now, Plague of Strength was once known as Chaos and Pain. So if you're familiar with his old website by that name, awesome. If not, check out plagueofstrength.com. It is fantastic and tons of amazing content on the history and all-around epicness of strength training from prehistoric days practically all the way until the modern era. And on this episode, Jamie and I talk about, all manner of things. We talk about the short period of time wherein we might have both actually lived in this exact same town at the exact same time. We talked about the crazy gym culture of years past here in America. We talked about martial arts, fight clubs, real life fight clubs, not just the movie. And then, of course, we talked about one of my favorite topics ever, which is bodyweight training, which is something that Jamie knows quite a bit about. He had just recently written a book about it as of the time we did the podcast interview. So I really think you're going to enjoy it quite a bit. But I want to give you one warning before you tune in. If you have kids in tow, or if you are generally sensitive, let's say, to swearing, this is probably not going to be the episode for you. And if you have kids in tow and you don't care about swearing, I would at least wait until they're not around. Jamie's a bit of a swear bear, and I never like to censor any of my guests. I let them say whatever they would like freely, but I also want to make sure that I give you the choice of listening in now or later or never, if that's your decision. But no matter what, I think that this is going to be an episode for the ages. In fact, I know it's going to be, because Jamie is always a character, great to talk with, super smart, and I just learned tons from him. I know you will too. And before we get started, I would be remiss if I did not mention my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. If this episode or any of my episodes totally pump you up and make you want to lift like there's no tomorrow and get swole and jacked, but let's say you hate going to the gym like me, you don't want to have to do a whole bunch of complicated exercises for a benefit that you really can't even tell after months and months of doing it, then I think what you're really going to like is the 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge, because it is designed around the most essential and foundational of all human movement patterns, that is the gait pattern or the walking pattern, and it teaches you how to call upon all of your muscles in your body at the exact same time toward just one goal, and that is to get swole, as well as resilient, as well as strong, as well as better coordinated, all sorts of stuff. People tell me all the time that they notice an improvement in their military pressing strength, their squat. One guy told me that he will just never lift weights the same way again after he started doing the 9-minute challenge. So highly recommended. Go to 9minutechallenge.com, get your own free copy. That is the number 9minutechallenge.com. So without further ado, let us begin the program. All right. Hello, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin.
That was the list of fun. You could see the energy out of any induction. That was amazing.
Yes.
You want to try to run that back, maybe, throw yourself in a little bit. You could sell it a bit more.
But that's my standard. This is always where I start off.
Hello, this is a monotone, fun-filled adventure into
exactly. It's all the part of my dry Hebraic wit. Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right. It's Hebraic.
exactly.
All right.
It's drier than Manischewitz wine, which is,
My God. Yeah. You know what? I've had some latkes as dry as your yeah, I had one disaster meal and I was like, oh, I'll never eat latkes again. I don't think. It was the worst.
yeah. Well, then we got to get you some good. I mean, you're in New Jersey. There's going to be plenty of places to eat good latkes.
And since then, I've had good latkes, but it was as a kid, my first exposure to them was from a woman who just can fucking cook, and it was a nightmare. Oh God, that was bad. That was a bad meal.
But you grew up in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean that's part of the reason. And if I'm not mistaken, in Radnor, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
I remember reading that because before my Facebook got completely annihilated, you and I were friends on Facebook. And I remember reading that and I was like, I used to live in, well, we talked about this, I think. I used to live in Downingtown, which was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. I briefly lived in Downingtown as well.
Yes. Did you,
yes.
I'm not going to ask what street because I don't want anybody to, people to make pilgrimages to the place where Jamie used to live and all that other stuff. But
I lived with a guy that I still a little beaten to. So he I don't need anybody going to his house and beating him up for me. I had lost one in my adult life. I got pepper sprayed and then he and his friend jumped, and they really kicked shit out of me. So my girlfriend had to super glue my back together. It was a good time.
Wow. This was in Downingtown?
Yeah, it was in Downingtown.
I think people underestimate just how janky that place was. I'll never forget. I remember
moved to your shit now, but yeah.
It was okay. Well, it was getting that way when I left. I left in 2019. I lived there for like more than half of 2018 and then like the first half of 2019. And yeah, there was like we
just barely missed each other.
Really?
Yeah, probably for the best. I was a drunken mess when I lived in Downingtown.
I do recall a number of your stories from reading your blog over the years. And you know what, actually, this is kind of funny too. I've been reading your site easily since I want to say probably like 2011, definitely 2012. And I remember the summer of 2013 in particular, on weekends.
That's a really long time. It's been 13 years. My God. I've been writing since 2008, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember there were a few weekends where I would like just sit down in front of my computer and I would just binge read. People binge watch Netflix. I would just binge read your blog and just laugh completely at random because it's like just facts and then a way of saying something that is just completely off the charts or whatever. And so I'm sure my roommates thought I was insane because I was it would just be completely silent from my room, like just explosion of laughter and then back to silence and then another explosion of laughter. Yeah.
Well, that's odd because it's so kind of the style that's trying to develop was kind of the satire style that Tucker Max and the guy who did Badass of the Week. Like I was kind of that's kind of where I was trying to go with it, and it kind of matches my own humor. And we were always doing everything to the most extreme, so I was trying to come up with these crazy metaphors all the time and similes. I'm glad that did that because that's what happened to me with Tucker Max. I would just burst out laughing in my cubicle at work.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, I used to read his stuff very frequently, and this was of course before memes and social media, where you would just send stuff back and forth to friends, and you wouldn't actually exchange any real communication. It would just be here's a picture, laugh at it, or do a laugh react, or whatever. It's like repeat the stuff back to each other, and same thing with Anchorman quotes or Happy Gilmore quotes and stuff like that. But and I also think that
I was literally watching Blades of Glory right before this while I was eating. So another eminently quotable. Yeah, just every bit of that movie is amazing.
Yeah, Chad Michaels. That was probably the best name that Will Ferrell ever had for any character, even better than Ron Burgundy.
Ice-Bound Sex Tornado.
Yes. Dude, yeah, that was a funny movie. And Bill Hader was in that, right? It was Napoleon Dynamite, dude.
Yep. No, it's not Bill Hader, though. That's not Bill Hader. Hader is from The Office or something.
No, Bill Hader was on SNL.
But it was the Napoleon Dynamite kid. Whatever his name is.
The Mormon. Right. He did a huge disappearing act. He just was like in a couple of movies, and now you just never hear from him. But
it was an amazing movie called Sasquatch Gang right after he was famous.
Really,
and it's a very odd. But Carl Weathers was in it. It was one of the last movies Carl Weathers was in, and it was all these really nerdy like Mormon kids, and it seemed like it was set in like the 80s because we'd go to like the Nickelcade and play like a nickel arcade, play video games for a nickel. So, but it was like they were so poor in Idaho or whatever that like they went back in time essentially. And so like he was they were looking for Sasquatch. They were trading like DVDs at Sasquatch, and Carl Weathers was like this and Sasquatch guy. I don't know. I love that movie, and it's just this nerdy gem of a naughties movie that just got lost in the shuffle.
I'm gonna check that out. Is his name John Heater? This is gonna really bother me if I can't think of his name.
John Heater, yes.
Is that
John,
it?
Yeah, I think it is John Heater. Yeah,
okay, it's something like that. Well, yeah. At any rate, no, I'm glad that you have good taste in movies. You have good taste in humor. Like I said.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, your stuff always made me laugh. By the way, I'll tell you this too. I remember I had this friend when I was living in Downingtown. I would always tell him like, dude, you have to read Plague of Strength.
Did you ever go to Blobfest when you lived there?
I went to Blobfest. I went to the diner for sure.
Okay.
I went like 2 or 3 times. I wasn't that impressed. I mean, folks, if you go to Downingtown, by all means, go check it out. But
you could that one grill on the corner is at the beginning of Downingtown.
Yeah.
That place is banging. I forget what the hell it's called. Iron something grill. That's banging, but the rest of it's pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
Although the first Friday is really fun. And you get to see the roller derby girls down there. They're always cute as hell. So it's always fun.
I missed out. I had no clue any of that stuff was even happening. I had no idea. But the reason I bring up my friend,
they have a whole streaks, dude, every month, first Friday, like in any month. And like the roller derby girls are always down there, like trying to get people to go to roller derby, and they're gorgeous. And, they're like the wacky, zany roller derby girls, the goofy burlesque names. I love all that shit. It's fun.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how I missed it. It must have just been, maybe I was a shut-in. I think that was part of it. It's like, I think
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really want to be in Downingtown that bad. It's like, it's not a terrible place. I'm not trashing it, but it was also like, not exactly how I'd planned my life, to be at that point. It was
for anybody obviously very few people who are listening to this who know what Downingtown is, but Downingtown is near Philadelphia. It's near Philadelphia in such a way that it's almost impossible to get Philadelphia unless you sit in a fucking traffic jam for an hour and a half at the very least.
Yeah.
And so you have to make this stupid right-hand turn on the highway that doesn't make any sense. And it shuffles a very high level traffic into 2 roads or 1 road that has 2 lanes each way that they built all these huge suburbs out into. And yeah, you just set traffic all the time every time you tried to leave your house, right?
Yeah.
And oh my God, on Black Friday, you can't even go to Downingtown or leave Downingtown because all of the like malls and out malls are on the way to Downingtown. So the highway's a parking lot. That is the worst place to live, I think, 422.
Yeah. I was fortunate not to have, I don't think I was ever in Downingtown during Black Friday because I think I left for like Thanksgiving. So I didn't have to deal with the Black Friday.
Oh my God, that is a nightmare. The likes of which that's DC traffic. Seriously,
yeah,
it's DC traffic all night long. Black Friday. Well, it used to be. It's probably not anymore.
Yeah. It was an interesting place. I'll tell you that much. I mean, I don't need to tell you. But what's funny to me is that I was recommending your articles to this friend of mine, Rob, who's also been a guest on the show, and I was like, man, you got to read, for instance, like you had a great article about, I think, Steve McCulloch and how he would throw dudes out a plate glass window if they broke the gym rules. Am I thinking of the right guy? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. And he was very similar to a gym owner that I had in Tucson who would, you never saw him except unless he was bringing a strip to his office or leaving with a stripper. Or if it was to beat the shit out of somebody who would lean plates up against any machine. If you leaned your plates against a bench for a second, he would suddenly appear behind you, punch you in the back of the head, and drag you bodily out the thing, screaming, "What's your fucking name?" And then would tear up your membership right there. And that was it. And that was for leaning a plate on the machine. You lean a plate on a bench, that's it for you. You're getting your ass kicked in the parking lot.
But I bet you anything, people loved the gym and they just never wanted to leave.
Oh my God. People would beg to get back at Jim. He would beat I saw him carry a guy out, like literally like you read about or you see in the old school, like cowboy movies where you grab them by the seat of their pants and the back of their neck. And he just did, because he was huge, and he just grabbed him, and he was coked up. He just grabbed him screaming, I told you 10 fucking times. And just threw him like he was just a piece of garbage out the door. It was amazing.
Dude, I kind of miss those. I mean, to some degree, it's mostly nostalgia for a time I never knew, but America had this wild characteristic about it where stuff like that was not that uncommon. You know, it was like maybe not.
It was really uncommon because, I mean, and you could contrast it. It's like Stern's gym that I went to in LA, which no longer, or San Diego.
Yeah.
It no longer is, but when I was in law school in San Diego for the year I was there, I tried all the different San Diego gyms, all the old school ones. And this one was upstairs. And it was one of those, like, you lift in silence and you don't grunt and you don't do this and you do that. Like, so there was a lot of like, some gyms you go where and you act like a fucking maniac, and other gyms. So there was Zoovers. Zoovers was out in LA.
Oh, yeah.
And the Mother Christianity's gym that I'm sure you remember.
Yeah.
And so to anybody who's never heard of this gym, it was the literal Disneyland for lifters. They had huge statue like elephants, shit, and like they had lots of strongman like games that you had a carnival, like the hammer swing and shit like that. And that they had all these homemade Yankee ass weights, and then huge signs about like Jesus is the Lord, and they'd have these like speakers speaking gospel music at you. But like, and it was only dudes in there, and there were dudes that lived together in tiny trailers outside that didn't have bathrooms or showers. Sweaty dudes, a lot of sweaty dudes, and they were for Jesus. They were sweaty for Jesus, and they were doing all these weird lifts. And yeah, that was another. So it really went anyway. It could get. I'm not saying they were gay. One of the pastors though was really gay, and he would people a lot of LSD and then fuck. So. But not suggesting that the people at Hoovers, like Bert Elliott or Pat Casey used to lift a lot. I'm not saying they fuck dudes. Yeah. Leisner lived. He was one of the guys who lived in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. For like a whole summer with no air conditioning in LA. I just can't even. I can't. I couldn't imagine what that place would have smelled like. Because you remember? Do you remember the 80s at all?
I was born in '86, so the memories I do have are extremely minimal.
It was very different. I mean, even if you go back and Smoking the Bandit, from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, or Gumball, the movies about the Gumball Rally, Cannonball Run.
Yeah,
Cannonball Run, a cross-country race. One of the guys who enters it's already been up for 5 days. It's been up for 5 days, and then he's holding a drink as he is speeding the road at 100 miles an hour, yelling at somebody to pour him another drink. This is the era I grew up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, and I'm not apologizing for my DUIs with that. I'm just saying, like, it was when you say that the 90s were wild, the 80s make no sense. I don't know how the fuck I'm here. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I don't know how a lot of people managed to make it, because my understanding was that, like drunken driving was considered like, boys will be boys, we'll let them off with a verbal warning, but they didn't take it.
No, I was saying Cannonball Run, everybody is drunken driving the entire film. Yeah. This is a thigh race across country, and everybody in the movie is drinking the entire, literally say, get me a drink for the road.
Yeah.
It's holy shit, dude. They were like drinking to prepare to drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then up for 5 days. How would that happen?
Yeah, that's
so many amphetamines.
I am sure that there were a lot of substances going through a lot of bloodstreams,
and with no air conditioning.
That's the worst.
So the car we drove in has scent that is unique to cars like from 1980 and before. It's a smell. It's all those asses. All of those asses that are sweating, and people weren't showering 3 times a day back then. And deodorant was a different deal back then. So we're talking about meth and alcohol sweating in all of these seats. That's how. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And cigarette too. Yeah.
Right.
Everyone was smoking the entire time.
That's a given. Yeah. That everybody knew about that part. I mean, that's why they had those lighters that just came in the car. It's like, I think about this now and I'm like, Like it's such a weird thing to think about. They still have the hole that you can, but now you use it for like a charger.
Bro, they had them on the plane. They had them
Yeah.
on the plane. Yeah, the armrest on the plane had a little ashtray in them, and that
Wow.
the little lighter joint in the armrest.
You know, Dennis
I used to
Leary.
play with the thing entire time on the flight. I used to drive my parents fucking crazy, but it was a little metal door on top of the ashtray.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop. But you know, you're a kid, just like, oh, that's fun.
But did
They
it
give
have?
little.
It didn't have a lighter though, did it?
I think I had the little push thingy lighter. Everybody was smoking. I know it was a little kid, so I don't really remember. I'm pretty sure they had the push lighter, John.
Interesting. Now but how flying back then must have been super expensive. Like my understanding is it's only become more like reasonable within the last maybe 30 years or something like that. Was it like around that time that you were flying that your parents were like, yeah, let's take a family vacation?
My dad was an investment banker, so I mean, we weren't like too rich, but we had money. So it was like I flew ever since I was a little baby, so I used to have a whole like big basket of sorry, I had a cough. I had this whole bag of airplanes that like they would give you these plastic airplanes. Every time you would go on a plane, if you were a little kid, they take you up to the pilot. You get meet the pilot. You get to see the whole thing. He'd let you sit in a seat. He put his hat on you, and then he'd give this little pin that it was maybe like, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches long, and it was a little like replica airplane to the people were flying on. So I had dozens of them as a kid.
Yeah. That's crazy to think that those days were, I remember seeing a couple of videos like that where it was just like, airport was like a lot more casual. People show up maybe a couple minutes before.
My dad used to drink a handle of vodka on the flight from New York to Chicago and then drive to work.
Wow.
Number one, he was drinking a handle of vodka in 3.5 hours. That's fucking insane. Hey, that's intense. But then to drive after that, that's a different time. There was a different time and place. It doesn't even seem possible.
No, that's a skill, I have to say. One that I do not possess, but that many people once possessed and had no problems with, evidently.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. Well, okay, so
we veered way off topic. I don't know what the topic was initially, but
this is great. I'm very interested in hearing about stuff like this because we were talking. Well, here's what we were talking about. We're talking about how, at least in my perception, back in the day, let's say, even 70s, 80s, and of course before then, it seemed like there were a lot more rough and tumble people. And nowadays, I think Americans are much more like chilled out. Of course, there are like rural areas where people are still like wild and crazy. But the whole drinking and driving, drinking and flying.
That's honestly for the best. And I know this is going down weird coming from me, but I looked at my wife yesterday and I was like, what age do you think you stopped being a complete fucking idiot? He was like, I'm sure. And I was like, I was thinking maybe mine was 28. And then I was like, no, I was a complete fuck idiot until I was 32. And I didn't stop being like a total dickhead, asshole idiot until maybe 42. So like, and she was like, yeah, that sounds about right. I was like, even in an interview, somebody was like, so I'm 28. Does that mean that I'm an idiot? And I'd be like, yeah, you know. Yeah, you don't know you are, but when you're 46, then you'll be like, oh, I was a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And we so much effort, like being out trying to out extreme each other back then.
Yeah.
Oh, number one, it was exhausting. It was literally on the inside was Harold and Kumar because I'm a nerd and I was always loved pothead movies and stuff like that. Even though I never smoked weed, and but I always act like the other guys in, the doc guys were screaming extreme and Harold and Kumar and like fucking doing extreme kayaking through a convenience store. Like that's more of where I was in life. And that shit is number one, exhausting, and two, not cool. And also like Avril Lavigne had a song Complicated.
Yeah.
And how the fuck we all missed the point of that? Like it's all that like the whole point of the song is like, stop being like a fucking tough guy around friends and just be you.
Yeah.
Because you look like a fuck dickhead. And none of us, I sang that song 20 years before I fucking was like, oh shit, that's what that song about? God damn.
Yeah. The philosopher Avril Lavigne, she knew it. She understood back when I was in high school. And I like that song, but I never thought about the lyrics either. And I guess now it makes sense.
I never once internalized the lyrics, but the lyrics are literally like, stop acting like a dickhead when your friends come around.
Yeah.
And it is an argument that I watched every guy I was ever friends with get screamed at by a girlfriend about it. And I guess I internalized it early. I never really realized what the song was about. But
yeah, I think there are people who just it's just like they'll do one of two things. They'll either act crazy in order to like, impress their girlfriend, but it's just this like program, this, I don't know, primordial program running through them where they're like, I just got to do stuff like this to impress women. Or she says, knock it off. And then he actually knocks it off. Those are like the only two real options. There's nothing more.
It's really a primordial process. I think it's more like we've been raised to hearing all this bullshit about rugged individualism and like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you got to be all the stand on your own, all that shit. And it's like, no, we live in a fucking society. It's a community of human beings who have to depend on each other to survive. We're not individuals. We live in a collective, and we need to respect the fact that we live in a collective and act like people who want to get along with people around us.
Certainly.
And that rough and tumble bullshit to play. And also, it really, when I look back on I was never a person to like pick fights and shit like that. Whenever I was looking for fights, it was because I was embarrassed usually. And like, I wanted to kind of assert myself like, no, I'm a fucking badass. You know what I mean? Or whatever. I think that have been part of the mentality.
I think so. I think that's the case for a lot of people. I think that, I think it's especially the case even now, like if somebody is popping off at you even if it's on social media, whatever, it's almost never about anything that you've said or that you've done. It's something's wrong with this person and they're just projecting it on you,
Yeah. Yeah. It's really frustrating. I've been going through a lot of it recently, and like where I will be very deliberate in my choice words so as to ensure that there's no confusion. And then they don't read the words and I don't know if they make assumption about what I've said or whatever, but it's just like, my God, like go back and read what I said. And then you'll see there was no confusion whatsoever. It was very deliberate. I mean, I'm a wordsmith. There's no way you can misconstrue my words. And yet consistently they are.
Yeah. Well, a big part of that has to do with the fact that, people don't experience the world as it is. They experience the world as they are. And so most people just get out of interactions or out of, writing or videos or whatever. They get out of it whatever they want because
that is something fantastic. Say that again. That was amazing. What did you say? Most
people don't experience the world as it is. They experience the world as they are.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to put it.
Now, I appreciate that. Thank you. Now, we talked a second ago about 28-year-olds asking if they think they're idiots. I'm in my 30s. I feel like maybe now I have reached a point at which I can say stuff that's profound just off the cuff. So maybe I have gotten past that age of idiocy and I'm now toward the more enlightened stage of life.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that you're not enlightened, but you got to jump out of the shun phase of your life to really break out of your cocoon. You know what I mean? Literally and figuratively, you have to break your cocoon. So,
of course.
Yeah. And that's a cool one to do. God damn, COVID made us so weird.
Yeah.
So that's when that's why I took a job bouncing after that. I was like, I got to get the fuck outside and talk to people.
Totally.
Do something. And my God, that was so awkward because it was in the hood in Trenton and, I'm the only white guy working there. And I look like a cop and I look like a Hell's Angels wet dream of what he might look like if he lived in. And I motorcycles. So and I have all these tattoos that look vaguely Nazi-ish, even though they're not Nazi-ish at all. But because I don't have any hair, people just make these assumptions. But having to learn how to overcome those assumptions was really valuable. It was really painful, but it was valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would have to agree. I think COVID did do a lot to us. And some people, I would say, one of the things that I did, which was a little bit interesting because it was not something that I did on average, was I started going to the gym. And because there was a 12-week program that a friend of mine runs, and he it's like a franchise sort of a thing, but it was something I wanted to try out because it promised to be like really tough workouts. It required a lot of dedication. And this was before, COVID really blew up, but I decided I was going to do that. And so I got a chance, I would say, for the first time to really spend a good amount of time in the gym and rely on that for my fitness.
What's gym called? Does it still exist?
Oh, yeah. The gym. Okay, so the gym itself is Omaha Elite Kettlebell, and it's run by Scott Stevens, who's the guy who taught me the kettlebell kung fu back in the day. Scott.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. He's been on this podcast before. He's a gentleman and a scholar. Also, we're talking about kicking some ass earlier. I mean, he's 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Shit, that's dope.
Yeah, unassuming guy. Like you wouldn't. I mean,
Mhm.
actually, I take that back. Like he does look like he could handle himself, but he has the demeanor of somebody who's very calm and what have you. But yeah, when it comes down to it, he could throw down if he really needed to. And he's got some stories of having done so in his youth. But he was
People always drag the shit out of TKD because it's become it was just a fun way for kids to get exercise, basically in the United States. But there was a show back in the day. It was like in the early 2000s called Human Weapon.
I love
there were
that
two
show.
shows actually. Yeah, you remember what so you had to buy the DVDs, I think, to see the Taekwondo episode. Did you see it?
I didn't see it. I remember seeing Muay Thai and they did jujitsu and MMA.
Yeah, so they ended it after the second season because just like on Fight Quest, the guys were getting injured and they were also doing other people.
Yeah.
The Kalar Hayatu ended the one guy because he got cut up the ribbon sword. So in Human Weapon, the reason why they kept the show was because they went to Ria and they were learning Taekwondo. And so if anybody who's never seen this show, Human Weapon is this big moose of a man who I think was like a kind of almost played professional football.
Yeah,
and then a little guy who, yeah. Oh, yeah. Was he a Bears lineman?
I don't remember. I just remember that he was a football player and the other guy was a professional mixed martial artist. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was okay. He was from the very early stages of mixed martial arts. And I remember seeing him fight in like the WC championships or so. There were a bunch of very weird little organizations, but, so they go there and they're basically bulleting their way through all the TKD stuff because both of them think it's bullshit. Then they both go up against the same guy. He's a former national champion Taekwondo. The man is smoking right before he's going to fight these guys, and he's fighting back to back. He kills them both in like 30 seconds apiece with high kicks that they didn't see coming at all. He's standing right in their face and then jump kicks them and nowhere, and they're out. It's fucking dope.
Yeah, dude. This is the thing, actually. I
was guys who went through Kokushin and got beat the fuck up. Like, they kept coming back. They were flattened.
Yeah.
They got nuked by this man.
Definitely.
This chain-smoking fucking old man, a former fighter.
Yeah, those are the kind of guys you don't want to fight because, they don't have great stamina. They don't have great conditioning, but they don't need it because they're just so efficient at what they do that they don't even break a sweat while they wail on you. And I mean, George St. Pierre, his Muay Thai coach, is the same way. The dude, he said the guy drinks like, if he's awake, he's drinking and smoking. He sleeps 3 hours a night. It got a total dad bod, but George St. Pierre brought him to the Ultimate Fighter because when he was coaching on it, he brought him to the Ultimate Fighter place, whatever, to have him work with the guy, the team he was coaching. And the dude just like cleaned everyone's clock, and he was just wobbling all over the place, drunk, and just act like he didn't care, but he just completely annihilated everybody. Like would be UFC
like
fighter.
Boss Rutan being at a bar with little teacup poodles or something like that, and somebody being like, "Hey, old man," or whatever, and he just steal like Wolverine, basically, like old man Logan, just like a smile on his face. He's like, "Yeah, say one more thing. Say one more thing. Thank you for this,
dude." I watched some videos about Boss Rutan talking about being in Japan and all these other places, and people would be like, they would just start fights with him. And he was like, "Look, I really don't want to fight." And then somebody would punch him in the face. He'd be like, "Listen, I said I don't want to fight. Okay. But if you keep pushing me," like he would let you push it beyond the limit. But then like when it was on, it was on. And so he would like fight 3 people, knock them out, submit them, whatever he had to do.
My God, he had the most gorgeous physique too. Like you go back and see old pictures of Austin, you're like, all right, I have an erection. Jesus, I need to, what? Like his body was fucking perfect. It was him and Ken Shamrock, the most amazing physique, and they were fighters.
I'd be curious about.
And they both came out pancrase, I think.
Yeah, they're both pancrase guys.
Times.
Yeah, and I think I know. I remember seeing some video where Boss Rutan was talking about. I think he fought Frank Shamrock, who's Ken's brother. And he definitely fought Ken, but he also fought Frank. It was like he was an up and comer, and I think Frank might have actually won. It was like, he didn't knock him out. It was like a point sort of a thing, if I'm not mistaken. But Yeah, I mean that was
Yeah,
like
that was tank race.
yeah, that was in the 90s, when they were fighting. And what's interesting too is that you look at their physique and it's like, okay, they were probably doing a mixture of like, old school bodybuilding and probably, maybe some proto powerlifting type stuff, but then also calisthenics, I would imagine. I mean, you would probably know better than I
Yeah,
would.
yeah. Oh, no, is this the seg? This is the seg calisthenics.
Well, if we can't, maybe. I am curious because I know that fighters have always had the reputation of doing lots of calisthenics. Like the Indian wrestlers. You've got a lot of. I mean, even American wrestlers do tons and tons of like high rep calisthenic stuff. But I actually don't know what their training was like.
Back in that era, like everybody was we were just lifting to look good. Like you just lifted to lift. And
Yeah.
I really don't think that functional training makes any fucking sense at all. Like if you wanted to find, like if it's a fun exercise for you and you think it helps you with what you're doing, it will help you with what you're doing.
Yeah.
But like you can look at all these guys, Don Fry, Ken Shamrock, all these guys who just pounded people into fucking mush. And they were also technically skilled fighters. But they looked like professional bodybuilders. They were just gorgeous and jacked and like, it was just, they just did bodybuilding. And I've written in the past about the way trained, and it really was like a lot of bodybuilding. Evander Holyfield's had Fred Hatfield as his strength coach.
Oh,
so
wow.
he did tons of powerlifting. Yeah. And a lot of the old school guys, I mean, obviously they're doing calisthenics, but in wrestling, one of the big calisthenic things, it's also for conditioning, is just brawling.
Yeah.
And that's something that MMA fighters train constantly. And it's, I guess it's kind of like a burpee. You're just putting your hips into the floor as fast as you can and then jumping back up.
Yeah.
And it's great exercise. So, but we're always doing, because I trained with Don Fry in Tucson, because when I lived in Tucson, we were so weird back in the day. Kids used to take Taekwondo and like that for our hardcore shows, because we fought at hardcore shows now they do all the moves, but they don't hit each other. We were actually spin kicking, fucking doing cartwheels into each other, just straight up standing and punching at each other. It was psychotic. But it was also when Fight Club came out. So I was in a JKD club, and we would train like Fight Club. We trained in the parking lot on the cement. And like one time I flew across, we were all on this fightclub.co.uk website where everybody would talk shit about how they were in fight clubs. I flew to Camden to fight a guy in Camden in an abandoned industrial warehouse park, which was insane because it was like the crack years. But I wanted to prove to him he didn't know what he was talking about. So I told him we had to do one with gloves on and then the other one with no gloves if he wanted to put no gloves on. I was like, I'm just going to spit the shit out of it because I don't want to break my hand. And I beat the shit out of the gloves on, and then we just hugged, called it a day. But so we could go to open gyms and stuff like that and fight all over the place. And then I found this other place. It was Rincon High School. I won't believe this. What did you pay to train mixed martial arts?
Oh gosh. Well, not a whole lot back in the day. It was like $70, $80 a month. This was in like 2007.
Yeah. So it was $5 a month at Rincon High School because you had to help pay to keep the light on. One room was Joe and jiu-jitsu with gis. The other room was without gi and also the striking room. And so that's where I met Don Fry and Drew Fick. Well, Drew Fick is the one who brought me in there. And he was the UFC fighter, King of the Cage fighter, who ended up fucking up his career. He was a cool kid. He was also a Playgirl Playmate of the Year, that guy.
Wow.
Whipped my ass freestyle wrestling match, which is how I met this guy and ended up getting my ass kicked by Don Fry. There was never any real calisthenics. I stopped shooting a lot of insulin. He shot insulin once we were at Wendy's, and he shot insulin in the middle of eating. And he was like, we were all looking at it. It's like, the fuck's anybody say? I'm Don Fry. And we were, yeah, you're also 280 pounds of purple. So I was going to say shit to you. Yeah, I'm just here and eat my grilled chicken sandwich, dickhead. God, I should have been eating burgers.
Yeah. No kidding. But wow, Don Fry, you know what? I'm such a huge fan of his. I still like to go back and watch the fight that he did with, I think it was with Sakuraba, and they were just punching.
It was Takayama. No, Sakura was the little guy. Sakura was the Gracie killer. It was Takayama, the blonde-haired, gigantic Japanese man. And they just stood there and hockey punched each other. Oh, it was... We destroyed my buddy's house. When we were watching that, we smashed his couch. We were punching each other. He went crazy because we all used to fight in the park and shit. We would get together and watch all these prides, and oh my god, we just was drunk and destroyed his house. It was crazy. That fight was amazing.
That was what I think all MMA fans were like before it hit the mainstream. It was just like you would go crazy watching these because it was like it didn't feel like you were watching a sport. It felt like you were watching like a backyard fist fight in a ring.
In Pride, it's been a spectacle. Well, the early years of UFC, and the first time I met Randy Couture was through my ex-wife, and I dragged him before I even met him. So, because she knew all those guys, Matt Lindland and Randy and all them, because she kept getting invited to the Olympic Training Center to be on the team. She was like, I do not want to be on a girl wrestling team. I will only wrestle men, because she thought women's wrestling were just pussies. But he was sitting behind me, and I was like, nobody gives a fuck about Randy Couture. He was in the dark years anyway. And he just smacked me on the back head, and he was like, thanks, kid. And I was like, oh shit.
There's really nothing you could do about it.
My ex-wife was like, I was trying to tell you, sitting behind you. And I was like, well, thanks. You could have led with that.
Yeah, exactly. But in any case, you ended up getting the message.
Yeah. He's a really nice guy, too. He loves my current life. So, I don't know. That's a weird... Life is circle, but I spent a week hanging out with him. The Code Arnold weekend.
Oh yeah.
None of the fans went, but I was a VIP, so I got invited by the Fairfax Hackley's, the coolest man ever, and he's the guy who runs it. And so he invited me as his personal guest because he loved 365 Days of Death.
That is a great book. That is a really great book. I actually went back through and reread it not that long ago. I made it this is probably earlier this year, late last year. I made it a thing, like in between sets. I was like, okay, I'm going to rest for 3 minutes and I'm just going to turn on a timer. I'm going to read from 365 Days of Brutality. Timer goes off. I'm going to do the next set of, pull-ups or whatever it was. And then timer goes on, 3 minutes. And so I did that over the course of maybe, I don't know, like a week or so. And I managed to get through the entire book again. And it's like, it is a wealth of amazing information. It is a really, really good book.
Thanks, dude. And so let me plug this guy's book.
Yeah.
The dude Geronimo Milo sent me a book like 2 years ago or something. I keep getting buried in like research, and I never got around reading it. And I read it the other day, and it is the greatest book on lifting history. I mean, it's not a comprehensive lifting history book. It's about kettlebells, but it also gives you very beautifully illustrated step-by-step instructions on how to do every major kettlebell exercise, and shows you like the people who are best at it and stuff. It's like the 365 of kettlebells. It's that fucking good.
Geronimo Milo. I'm going to check that out. That sounds like an amazing book.
And the book is called, let me just find real quick. You can keep going with what you're saying.
Sure.
I just want.
No, but I'm curious about this book because I love like anything about lifting history and like tradition behind,
Kettlebell Secret Files is what it's called.
Kettlebell Secret
And I guess he's just Geronimo Milo on Instagram, I'm pretty sure.
Geronimo Milo. I'm going to check this guy out. I know I've heard the name. I don't know the guy, but he sounds amazing.
So fucking good. I feel like such a dickhead for sleeping on this. I mean, it would have made my life easier if I had read that book before I tried to write some stuff that I've written. But sometimes you just gets lost in the shuffle. So.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of books, you've got a new one out that I just read and I loved, Bodyweight Blitz.
Oh, thank you. Yep.
It was, one of the things I liked about it, you were just talking about the traditions of that Geronimo Milo was talking about in terms of kettlebell training and things of that nature. And one of the things that I thought was very cool is you pointed out something that I've noticed, but I haven't really been able to verbalize, is just that like the strength training world has become so fractured where now it's just like, oh, are you a kettlebell guy or a bodyweight guy or a powerlifting guy or an Olympic lifting guy? And it's like there was a time at which people did all that stuff, and anything that would get you stronger or better conditioned, people would do it. It wasn't a matter of like identity. It was, what you did, not like who you were. Who you were ended up being the person that you turned yourself into, had nothing to do with the piece of equipment you attached yourself to.
Well, I will say that a lot of that is because people didn't lift weights for image back then. They lifted weights because they loved lifting weights. The image of a weightlifter in the the early 20th century was that they were gay, for one, because obviously gay guys pay for their shit because they were buying thirst trap pics because they would all make the little, I forget what they were called, cabinet pictures or something like that.
Okay.
And so they had thirst trap pictures, and that's when you see like the you'll see old sculptures that are real gay. I mean, they're just gay. They're oily. They're in that little whatever that fucking banana hammock is. It's just the string on the sides.
Yeah,
like it's if it's wet and gay and on fire, it's like Cirque du Soleil had an orgy of gay men and like all condensed into one photograph. And like, so like these guys were actually like, nobody gave a shit then. Even Arnold said, if you watch the outtakes to Pumping Iron, he talks in there about how he gave a man the best night of his life. He was it literally said, I was a prep coach, doing air quotes. I was his coach for the bodybuilding contest, and I gave him the best night of his life. And like, he's smiling like, I thought that man half to death. And then he went and won a bodybuilding competition for that.
Wow.
So people back then didn't really give a fuck, but like the percent was that everybody was gay. So people just lifted because they enjoyed lifting weights. And when they got into lifting weights, it was because they had a particular image. They weren't trying to look tough. They weren't trying to look like this person or that person. They were just like, oh my God, that guy's super strong, or that woman's super strong. I want to like that person.
Yeah.
And so the Turners were the ones who basically spread the gospel of lifting, starting in the early 1850s. That's a whole, I could explain, but I'm not going to. But it's in the 1850s, and that they were gymnasts. But they also had something called heavy gymnastics, which was weightlifting. That was all one thing. And then Friedrich Jan, the guy who invented gymnastics, he's the guy who started the Turners. And Turner is actually a word, that's what gym is in German. So it just means gymnast. And so they were, the guys competed in like the rings and things like that. And they also did lift. So you didn't have people that did one or the other. And rings and rope climbs were especially huge, as rope climbing especially was like the way that everybody got their biceps. So when you see those crazy peak biceps back in the day, you and I don't have, it's because we're not climbing big fucking fat rope every day. They did angled rope climbs, and they did straight rope climbs with and without legs, rope climbs, all that shit. And also did bars, rings, they stuff where their arms were constantly like out. We don't do anything straight arms ever. We're always told do everything with soft arms and the soft lockout. And we wonder what our shoulders are fucked up and our elbows are fucked up. You know why we have a tennis elbow? It's because we never get our fucking arms. Our arms are locked in a semi-rigid, rigid position that's not a lockout. So we have tearing our biceps to all this shit that if we had just learned how to do a plank and had practiced being like levers, floor levers and levers from a bar. And like, I mean, I can't do it quite yet, but I'm getting there. And, but I'm working towards it. And I'm realizing, and this is something that I've come to realize by looking at these pictures and seeing people juggle kettlebells, that if I can't do that, I'm not strong. Who gives a fuck that I squat this or I squat that or I lift this or I bench that? I couldn't put my arms over my head until last week.
Yeah.
Like I still can't quite straighten this arm, like sitting there. And I'm just like, I don't even like showing off my arms in public because the muscles aren't quite where they should be because I haven't stretched them into the position yet, but still like it's something that I'm working towards. And it's something that I learned as a result of not being able to do a push-up because my hands can go on the floor because I didn't have the wrist flexibility.
Yeah.
So just developing I never realized that not being able to get into full squat was a real problem. I always thought it was kind of funny that I was inflexible. But then I realized my dad could barely walk when he died because calves were so tight. Yeah. And I was getting all this pain in my calves. And so then I started stretching and doing all the shit. And like, I've just progressively started like fix stuff. But I realized calisthenics are a huge part of maintaining that. I think that's something that people knew back then. They knew you had to rub yourself down after you did. They knew you had to massage yourself while you lifted. They knew that you had to do where you stretched your arms. They did a lot of bicep work with straight arms. The Roman rings where they hold yourself in a crucifix or lever or whatever, it's straight arm stuff. A straight arm, please lever, or a lever is always straight arm. And that's building your biceps and that creepy peak in the biceps. That's why gyms have those gorgeous arms.
Yeah.
And I want that shit. And so that's why I started getting more interested in calisthenics. And then I remembered how much I fucking loved them back in the day. And I've loved pull-ups. I mean, pull-ups, everybody says, if you could only do one exercise, which is a stupid thing anyway, because why would only do one exercise?
Yeah.
But I have proven for me pull-ups.
Yeah.
I will do pull-ups. I will do pull-ups if I don't have arms. I'll figure out a fucking way. I'll do it with my teeth. I don't care. I just love hanging from a bar. And also hanging from a bar is good for you. My God, I'll just hang from a bar anytime I can. So good for your shoulders. And your rib cage stretches out your abs, and you get better definition from getting stretched out.
Yeah, definitely.
I wish somebody would have told me that back in the day.
But here's the question, would you have listened to that person if they had said, you got to do this, that? Because, if you think about it, we're so many people are so used to looking at what's the weight on the bar? How much can this person lift? Sometimes messages like that just get completely glossed over,
Yeah. I need a dude with a big white beard and some gigantic white eyebrows to just smack the shit out of me when I was 16 and be like, do fucking Tai Chi. Yeah. And just every time I'd be like, I'm going to go lift weights, I'm going to go run away, he would just smack me and be like, you're going to fucking learn to calm down. Because I needed to do and stretch and go spaz. Like, then you can at least do it with your arms stretched. Like, I mean, my whole life would have been improved if I had just had somebody as a child be like, forcibly stretched me. Just be like, sure. I know it's nobody gives a shit. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things I think is very difficult for a lot of people to learn, except for in hindsight. And I was fortunate in that I think I kind of figured early on. I did gymnastics as a little kid. And so, so for me, it was like, now I wasn't like competing or anything like that. It was just more like recreational, but there was still like this emphasis on full range of motion and flexibility.
Think children should compete. Why are children competing?
Yeah,
it's insane to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
Now I take that back. On Ninja Warrior, that's for fun. Those kids, that shit will save the world. Ninja Warrior, and those kids. If I had Ninja Warrior when I was a kid, I would fill up the entire screen right now. I would be so goddamn big. Oh my God, that shit was made for tiny G. Like, I got myself on two stories up climbing our fireplace when we lived in Texas. We had a big gabled roof, so I got stuck at the top. And I used to climb anything and everything. And holy shit, Ninja Warrior or something. And that's another testament to calisthenics. Like, but you can also see the benefit of weights added to calisthenics, because in the last couple of years since COVID, you saw all these Ninja Warriors start lifting, and they added that to the calisthenics they're already doing. Now they're jacked, they're hot as fuck, and they're going way faster than they are.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the things that I think is very good about, your approach is whatever's going to get you stronger is what you should be doing. And a lot of people, their approach is like, well, I'm just going to lift barbells because, who cares? I don't need to be flexible. That stuff is, silly.
I did that my whole life. I really wish that I hadn't.
Yeah. I think that, I think in particular, I like the emphasis on the high rep calisthenic stuff because, there is a ton of benefits that come from that. It's not just the stamina. It's not just, strengthening your connective tissues, but it actually gets you a lot stronger at a whole lot of other things too. And as you're pointing out, if you can't put your hands flat on the ground because your wrists just won't even allow for it, you get some really serious issues. And all your strength is like, it's like on a razor's edge, because one wrong move, you're going to end up in the hospital. You're going to end up with something torn or what have you.
And I had no balance. When I say no balance, I could not stand on one foot. With no weight on my back, I could not stand on one foot. I would fall over. I had no balance because my wrists or my ankles were even tighter than wrists.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's true. My wrists are still very tight. I've been working on them like hell. But your ankles are seemingly easier. They have been easier for me to loosen up because I walk a curb or I jog on the curb. Or now because I text them while I'm walking to the gym. Hi shit. But now I'm walking down. I'm in traffic like a dickhead, walking and on the curb and typing on my phone, which is, I realized today it was a very stupid thing to do. But I like walking on the curb really, really helped with balance. And as somebody, I think it was in Blood Fist, like they actually made the point that like working on your cardio is not the same as working on your balance. They're two different things. And you can work them together, like running on the curb. They're two different things, and they're both very important. And the more balance you have, the more stable you are, the more weight you're going to be able to lift.
Absolutely.
So it's just, especially on an overhead lift, now I can grip the floor with my feet. I never knew. I heard people say that, and I was like, the floor with your feet? What the fuck are you talking about? No, it was basically walking with tiny flippers for feet.
Yeah.
So like they didn't bend, they didn't do anything, and I couldn't grip the floor. But like, yeah, it makes it much easier to push when you can grip the floor with your feet.
Absolutely. Yeah, you were like an involuntary, or I guess in this case, a voluntary Doug Hepburn. Just like these clubs that didn't do anything.
Yeah. It was really, I was voluntarily crippled.
Yeah. That's a very interesting way to put it. And I think that it's good that you've discovered that regardless of it maybe not being in the time or the era that you wish it would have been, but the value of being able to move appropriately and be able to do things outside of the gym so that you can actually lift better in the gym. I always liken it to when I try to convince people that they should be working on their mobility and their balance and coordination and stuff like that. Things that can be done really pretty simply. You don't need a lot of crazy equipment to do it. You're talking about walking on a curb. I always liken it to the scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where the knight tells him, Indiana Jones drinks from the Holy Grail. Spoiler alert, if people haven't seen it.
Oh my God, is that what happened in the end?
Yes. Yeah. Well, he drinks from the Holy Grail, and then the knight says, "You have chosen wisely."
Jesus?
Yes. And so then he says, "But the Grail cannot pass beyond the Great Seal," meaning if Indiana Jones wanted to stay immortal, he wouldn't be able to leave that enclosure, which is why the knight was there, and that's how he had been there for these hundreds of years. So I don't know. Have you seen the movie?
I have not.
You haven't? Oh, I just totally ruined it for you. Well,
no, I know. I really don't. I don't like those movies. I saw the first two, and it's like that's enough for me. I didn't like Alan Quartermain. I don't like those like robber archaeologist shit. I'm like, somebody ought to shoot that motherfucker in his fucking dick. And then they're fucking eating monkey brains. As a kid, I was like slobbering mad watching that shit. I wanted to kill everybody in the movie.
Well,
although shout out to Data, who's in that movie, because the little kid Data from Goonies in that movie, and he was also in Everything Everywhere All at Once. He was fucking awesome in that movie.
I never saw it. I saw Goonies. What? I saw Temple of Doom. Yeah,
you haven't seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I've not.
It is, bro. It's so good.
I'll check it out.
So good.
I heard great things. I mean, he got all these accolades. Like everybody just loved the movie. I don't see all that many movies unless I'm on an airplane. I usually don't sit back.
You like
and watch
martial arts, right?
Yeah.
That's a badass fucking martial arts movie. And then one of the I don't want to give anything away. There's time travel. The bad guy in the movie is basically like a Harley Quinn who has the powers of the Bonder, who can just basically transform reality into whatever she wants.
Okay.
So she will just imagine two big dildos in her hands and beat cops to death with them, and then turn somebody else into bubbles and just all kinds of crazy shit. It's such fun.
And this is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll certainly check it out. But I do suggest that you see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, because Indiana Jones is a good guy. He's an archaeologist who wants to put this stuff in museums. He's not like, a marauder just getting it for people's personal collections. That's, the big theme, I think, running through all those movies is that he's trying to, you saw Temple of Doom. He gives the Shankara stones back to the village. He doesn't take them, to the British Museum or something like that. He could have made millions and millions of dollars, but he says, no, I'm going to give them back to the villagers. These are important to them. And so he's he's a good, affable guy. And also an archaeologist.
Yes, I hated those movies ever since I was a little kid. I've aggressively hated them since I was a child.
Now,
and I grew up with them.
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna push you right now on this. Now, you said growing up, you wish somebody a guy in a big white beard, big white eyebrows would have been like, you need to stretch, you need to do this, and they would have pushed you.
I'll watch your stupid fucking movie.
Thank you.
Christ. You my goddamn words again, you son of a bitch. I'm over here you can be open to new experiences. You got to have an open mind, man. Fuck you.
You said all those things. I'm just holding you to it.
Oh, I know. Thanks for holding me to that shit I said you did.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Now, if anybody else is looking for a new and exciting experience, I suggest very heartily that you go buy Jamie's new book, Bodyweight Blitz. It's The Plague of Strength. Bodyweight Blitz is the full name.
So, but we didn't really quite say so I just, if you don't buy the book, every single lifter up until about the 1970s was doing bodyweight exercises every single workout.
Yeah.
And probably on days that they weren't working out, they were still going down to the beach and putting their hands on a attractive from the opposite sex or the same sex, whoever they wanted to fuck, and they were doing hand balancing with. So if it was a girl or guy, they were putting their hands all over them and they were doing gymnastics together, getting sweaty before not sweaty. And like, it's a good thing. I'm not suggesting you go out and rope people to try to do hand balancing. And I don't know where the fuck you find a partner for hand balancing.
Yeah.
But the point is, they did a lot of body weight shit they wouldn't even consider doing.
Yeah.
And so you see somebody doing a flag, don't say, oh, it would be cool if I could do that. Say, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
I should be able to. Like, if I think I'm strong, I should be able to do a flag. And I can't do a flag, so I guess I'm not strong. And so I just, like, until I fix this arm, I can't do one. And so I'm fixing it as fast as I can. But I want to be able to do a flag literally. If I step up out of a coma and they're like, you've been in a coma for 6 months, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go do a flag or like just wake myself up.
That's right.
That's where I want to be.
That's a great way to be. And I think that everybody should absolutely aspire to be exactly that, because I think that the underlying message is strong is whatever I can't yet do. And if you want to get strong, you got to be able to not only make the weights defy gravity, but you also have to be able to make your body defy gravity. If you can do those two things,
absolutely,
you got it made.
Absolutely. And there's a woman, Jillian Ward. If you don't follow her on Instagram, need to. Or the woman is, she came in like third in the CrossFit Games one year. She's an IFBB pro bodybuilder. She has like world records in calisthenics, like crazy world records in calisthenics. She's done thousands and thousands of pull-ups and sit-ups and all kinds of, I mean, the woman is the ultimate badass. And she and I had so much in common because we were both like trying so hard to get people to like us when we were growing up, but we're both so weird and overly energetic and we didn't know how to do it. So we just tried to get good at things so people would like us. And that didn't work. So we got good at more things because we thought we weren't good enough. And that's why they didn't like us. And the more we got good at things, the more people didn't like us. And then like, we were like, what the fuck, doesn't anybody like us? But she didn't turn into a bitter psychopath like I did. So she just turned into a beautiful, amazing woman who's incredibly successful, but she can also do the most amazing things with her body. And she has powerlifting records, which is how I met her. We were at a powerlifting where the two oddball outcasts of the powerlifting meet nobody liked. And so we kind of struck up a friendship that way. But she crushed everybody, I crushed everybody. And we've all loved calisthenics growing up. I had records in my high school for calisthenics. We had there was a challenge. It was one pull up and push up, one dip. You could do them in whatever order you wanted. And then you get a 30-second rest. Then you do 2, take a 30-second rest, 3, and you going until you couldn't. And I think I hit T1 or something like that. But I mean, I had to work at that every single day because I elected to take a gym on every period that I had. Yeah. So I just went to the gym literally every class. All right, with the library to the gym. So I was lifting 3 times a day and then going to wrestling practice afterwards or football or track. And I was doing more calisthenics there, frog jumps and this and that. So it really, and now I've started to realize the value in that. And like all the things that I got away from because I was like, oh, I don't need to do that. Yeah, I fucking do need to do that. Yeah, you do need to run. You do need to walk. You do need to do cardio. You need to get your ass outside and do that shit.
Yeah.
A treadmill does not count for anything unless you're a hamster or you're locked in a room like you're Josh Brolin in fucking Old Boy and you're trained to go fight everybody on the planet afterwards.
Right.
Then you use a treadmill.
Exactly.
But that's it.
That is it. Exactly.
I don't give a fuck what kind of treadmill it is either. What about this kind of treadmill? Go fuck yourself. What about that kind of treadmill? Go fuck yourself. What about this kind of, what about a tread desk? I don't care. Just go outside and walk. I don't care about your stupid $5,000.
Yeah.
Fuck your bougie desk.
Yes. I think that.
I do like standing desks. Honestly, I stand all day long. It's very good for you.
I'm a fan. Way better than having to sit all day and ending up in fetal position just by the fact that, you're always hunched over and your hips are always bent. It's no way to get through life.
And then, so they're sitting all day long. Their hip flexors are tight as fuck. Their abs are weak shit, and their lower back's overstretched. And then they go onto a treadmill where their flat ass has to do even less work because the treadmill's pulling your fucking feet backward for you. So you have no ass, no hamstrings. Your calves are trash, and all because and then you're hanging onto this fuck treadmill for dear life, pretending like you're doing cardio. It's a disgrace.
It is a disgrace. And calisthenics can be done anywhere. So can walking. So can a whole lot of things. You don't need it.
I rekindled my love for calisthenics while I was in jail. Honestly, that's where I wall sit. So if I'm a spaz, not in jail. In jail, I am a super spaz because it's a very stressful place, and I express my inner anguish through the magic of exercise. Mm-hmm. And so I would just walk, and there's this big longness. I would walk 100 meters or 50 meters, do a wall sit as long as I could, then walk the other side, do a wall sit as long as I could, the other side, do a wall sit. And I got into a gym finally after 3.5 months, and it was coming into I hadn't lifted really. It was a drunken mess going into the gym. It was my DUI shit. And so I squatted 500 with no warm up, just from doing wall sits for 3 months, all day, every day, and pull ups and push ups. And I was doing push ups on my knuckles on the ground though, because doing it with my flat hands hurt. I've been doing knuckle push ups because I was like, Bruce Lee did them on his nose. That'll be fine for me. Yeah. Plus the other way hurt. Well, the other way is the way you should.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that knuckle push-ups are a perfectly fine variation, but if you can't do them with your hands flat, you got to address that. There's just no way around it.
No, and it's goddamn embarrassing. All the problems I had were embarrassing. Trying to up off the ground off one knee was I had to almost plan it. I had to breathe a certain way, get up in a certain way. If a wind gust hit me, I was not getting up.
Yeah.
Or I was going to get up and it was going to look like I was having effort. And that's fucking embarrassing. I could double 670 on the squat, but if I could tie my shoes, I would pass out because my legs would cramp up too much.
Yeah. It's no way to be. But you've learned your lesson. You're older and wiser. And now you've got an excellent book that I encourage people to get, but even if they don't, they should take your words to heart.
And for the record, I'm stronger than it was. It's not the partial front squats I used to do, I could do as I would laugh while doing them. I will answer the phone while doing polished squats and now with 315, and I'm doing 5-second pause, and people don't even know that I'm squatting. And I'll squat for 1.5 minutes paying attention. Doing pause squats. I am obscenely strong now. And once I fix my fucking wrist, it will be chimpanzee strong.
Well, I look forward to the Chimp Strong book that you will hopefully write after you have written down your wrist rehab routine. That's going to be a good one.
Do you have any sessions for wrist rehab since you are the calisthenics guy?
I'll give you some pointers when we finish up here. I'll give you some ideas. You may already know some of them.
You might as well share them with the audience, right?
Well, the thing is I can definitely do that. I'm not sure that I'll be able to speak into the microphone. And since there are going to be people who are listening to this primarily on the podcast.
I see.
Yeah, but you know what I will do is that I think I have a video of me doing some of these movements on YouTube. So I'll include a video in the YouTube comment or the YouTube description, as well as the show notes for the podcast itself. So folks, I will definitely give you some wrist pointers that I think will help.
Thank you.
Yeah, naturally, Jamie, if they work for you, please let me know. And be all too happy to give you some ideas, and we'll cover them as soon as we end up. And in fact, I think we're at a pretty good point now where we could wrap things up.
Shit. Yeah, we're moving. We've been at it for a while. Huh?
Oh yeah. So the website is Plague of Strength. The link I'm going to put in the description that goes directly to the book so you can read about it. So if you decide that you want to get it, you won't have to dig around and search for it. Jamie's a very prolific writer. So you could be listening.
Most of my writing, though, now is done on Instagram, and my Instagram is at Plague of Strength. And so I've kind of mastered the short form and the video now. And I feel very much like the dude who did the creature effects for Star Wars. Hell was his name?
Stan Winston? Was it Stan Winston?
No, not Stan Winston, because he went on to do Jurassic Park after that.
Yeah, he was Stan Winston, Industrial Light and Magic.
Oh, the stop motion guy?
Oh, stop motion? I don't know.
He was Ray Harryhausen's kind of acolyte. But
okay.
The transition from stop motion to digital while working on Jurassic Park, because he knew that the other way was going out of action. Wow. And so I felt very much like that with switching from writing to video. It is a clunky, difficult, and miserable process, frankly, but I feel I've got the hang of it now. And so please go to Instagram to find my shit because I can't cross post all the time. It's exhausting.
No, of course. So at Plague of Strength on Instagram, plagueofstrength.com on the World Wide Web. That is.
Oh, yes. And my new podcast.
Yes.
Prize Fighters, Search Breaks, and Gangsters, where my co-host, Go Harden, and I cover movies and TV shows that are set in the 19th century. And we discuss the history of them and the film itself or the TV show itself. We started with Gangs of New York, kind of had to cut our teeth on it. And then we went into Warrior, season 1, the epic Max show about Bruce Lee's original, except for the TV show Kung Fu. They made this. And so this is what I've always wanted to do, be able to teach history with a hook. And so we're using mass media as the hook, and it's perfect. It's so much fun. And Greta's amazing. She's a food historian she was a science teacher for 20 years. Wow. And so we are going to debunk all of the nonsensical beliefs everybody has about 19th century and early 20th century lifters being more ripped because they had better food and all that shit that you see online. Oh, better genetics this and better food that. No, I enlisted this woman to eat specifically so that we can combat that bullshit. You are no worse than your dad or your grandfather or your great-grandfather, and you are almost certainly better. You definitely have a bigger dick. That is definite. It's definite. That is science. There are studies now that are describing the growth in penises around the world as a epidemic. So you definitely have a bigger dick than everybody before you. If you're feeling bad about yourself, at least look down at your pants and say, doing that all right.
Right. Well, I can't say that I've ever looked down and feel bad, but I am very happy to hear that other people can now breathe a sigh of relief when they look down into their own pants.
I read today, and the reason why it's top of mind is there was an article about it because I have Flipboard about penile implants gone wrong. And I was, of course they fucking go wrong. These people are psychopaths. And also, you tell any woman you have a penile implant and she will never speak to you again because that is an admission that you are insecure of scale that is incalculable. Yeah. So you will never get laid. But of course you have a fucking robot. It's not going to work. What the fuck are you doing? That shit's crazy.
Yeah.
That's why it's top of mind. Yeah.
Good. Well,
so don't do that to anybody who's thinking about it. Don't do it.
Yeah. Think twice.
We might not always agree on everything, but we would agree no implants.
Exactly. Your weenie is fine the way it is. You don't need
Yes, you should be happy with it. Be happy with it. And you know what? If you're happy with it, the person that you're with is be happy with it.
Amen. Amen. I never thought I would end a podcast on that note, but on that note,
that's the takeaway for this entire thing. Remember nothing else.
Exactly. Love yourself the way that you are, particularly.
Yeah. You know what? We saved the world today. That's what we did. We saved it.
At least one person listening has now rethought himself, which I am very happy about because
so the real takeaway is all of the things ever thought you didn't need to do because it's not benching or squatting or deadlifting. You need to do things. And that includes wrestling, which is something that has been forgotten as a strength sport, but it is a strength sport. That is why wrestling exists, is to demonstrate your strength. And it was essential part of lifting up through about the 1920s, and World War I destroyed lifting culture. Yeah, and between World War I and World War II, all the great lifters got killed or starved, and the sports fell apart. But wrestling died as part of strength culture. And if you have the ability to wrestle or even do wrestling drills like pummeling, they're really, really, really good for you, and they're very highly recommended by every strength expert up until about the 1930s.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a real shame that I think it's great that, people are doing jujitsu and stuff like that. But I think that the wrestling is very different. And I also think that it has a lot of benefits for not just, your cardio and your ability to defend yourself, but like you're saying, also your strength, muscularity. These things are very
the mentality in wrestling is way different. And I don't know how I personally don't Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I ever like those guys. They're too seriously, take themselves too seriously. Yeah. But wrestling, we used to have so much fun and we'd invent all these crazy ass games. We'd play tackle basketball and but you were always like drilling takedowns and things like that.
Yeah.
Even though we were just playing a dumbass game we invented, or we dodgeball for hours.
Yeah.
Like that's great cardio, and people never think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if you start to insert stuff like that to your life, like the reason I started like third world spots, just petting animals and things like that, but start doing it in your everyday life. Like we were saying, you don't need any equipment for this shit. You just need to do it. You just don't say you're going to start doing it. Don't say you're thinking about it. Don't message somebody saying, think about doing this. Just fucking do it.
That's right.
That's it.
In the words of the philosopher best known as Ronnie Coleman, ain't nothing to it but to do it. So,
all right.
Yeah, I think we will leave on that note. Jamie, thank you again for coming on another time to this fine podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's great to be on again. I'm sad. I wish that it hadn't taken so long, but I've missed you so.
As have I. That's why I figured, you know what? It is time to end this stalemate. We need to get back on. We need to make another show. And I encourage everybody to go to his site. You got
that dude Geronimo Ilo on here too. He's to be the shit for you.
I'm going to reach out to him. I'm very excited. Especially that this is not some like age-old author who has long since passed away, but it is somebody who is still alive and who is able and willing to do podcasts. He will definitely.
When you see the book, you're going to go fucking crazy. I'm going to send it to you because I don't like sent it to me, and I'm not trying to be that guy. Sure. Like, yeah, you gotta get in touch with him, and he is the man.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Be on the lookout, folks. Geronimo Milo is up next. But until then, Jamie Lewis, plagueofstrength.com, at plagueofstrength on Instagram. Check out his podcast as well. And folks, as always, have fun and happy
training.
Have
a great.
That's right. Thank you again for tuning in to the Hammercast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe and share it with your best friend, closest family members, or hell, even your mortal enemies if you like a challenge. And don't forget, if you're ready to take your own strength, stamina, and resilience to bold and brilliant new levels of development, be sure to get your hands on my free 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge, available for instant download at 9minutechallenge.com. That's the number 9minutechallenge.com. Go forth and rock. And as always, have fun and happy training.